back for a pop-up little surprise video content here. So again, the benefits of asking questions, even if they seem random or unimportant, in the comment section is sometimes it gives me new things to talk about that I hadn't really considered before. And of course, this also applies to the circumstances surrounding the timing of the question or whatnot, because I think that the fact that I've been pretty hardcore in F1 this year, and I think I'm going to be a lifelong fan at this point, is what also helps motivate talk about this, right? So recently I've complained a lot about suspension and suspension feeling squirrely or whatnot, and complaining about stock suspension. I'm going to talk about that soon. But in the comments, somebody asked, like, oh, hey, your alignment may be off, is why you're not doing the or the top speed isn't that great or feeling that good. But of course, I'm talking about a new car. I'm not talking about an old car. Suspension's fine. I mean, the alignment's fine. It's 100% the stock suspension just not holding up, and the ride height being too high and too much under air pressure that's creating lift. So the higher speed you go, the more lift you're generating, the more that it feels like that any little correction of the steering wheel can send you flying. And so somebody else asked questions like, hey, but what about the big ass wing on the Civic? Doesn't that help? Well, that goes to talking about exactly what Aero really does for cars and where it benefits and where it doesn't. Now, I guess there's an argument for like a rear-wheel drive car, like it could potentially add or help with straight line speed, simply because of the fact that you're getting a little bit more grip because you're getting more downforce, more ground force, there's less chance that the tires are going to break, downforce, less chance that the tires are going to break loose. But and this is where the whole F1 thing comes into place. So when you talk about Aero, they have different sizes and packages they have for their front wing and their rear wing to either add or reduce downforce depending on the track, which is why they practice around the circuits and whatnot, so that way they can see where they need to add or take away. That's why every single minute they're on the track is recorded and analyzed, and they see where they can increase time by braking or not braking, what part of the turn they brake in, how much downforce they have in the turns, how much downforce they have on the straights. And then when I say this, now the downforce, now the having the wing and stuff helps in the turns, the twisties and the turnies, right? And I'm not doing any twisting and turning in the Type R. It's all go fast or really straight line, or maybe in like cutting sideways like this as you're cutting across traffic or whatnot. And so when I said that the after 90 miles per hour is when the SI used to feel sketchy, it's after 110 miles per hour that I start to feel sketchy in the Type R. So it is an improvement over its little brother, but it's still not an improvement overall as per how fast the car can go. The car is rated for at 169 miles per hour, right? And I have not taken it past. I do believe I topped out at like 138, 140. After and that was a wide open highway at 4 o'clock in the morning. 5 lanes, nobody there but me, and I still felt like this is not something I would like to sustain for any long period of time on a long straight sprint. And also you got to deal with it. Florida is flat mostly, and you got an ocean breeze you got to deal with as well. So the faster you're going, the more impact that little breeze can make. So again, when you're looking at a wing and what it's going to help you, it's going to help you go through the turns, but it's going to take away your straight line speed because you're adding more drag. You're having more stuff to catch the wind, which is going to slow you down. Which is why you hear, like the whole shake and bake from Talladega Nights. That shit is real. They talk about that all the time in racing, whether you have a toe or you're in the dirty air. It depends exactly where your placement is behind somebody, whether you're close or whether you're far enough behind, because the cars are designed to have the air go over. But once the air goes over, it also comes back in, it collapses into that spot. So when you're having to deal with the air coming and collapsing into it, that's when you're dealing with dirty air, where it causes restrictions behind you, versus if you're really close behind somebody, you're getting a tow because you're in their pocket, right? So the Civic Type R wing, it makes all kinds of sense for the Nürburgring and shit like that. I mean, like at the time it came out, the 2017, I believe, it set the fastest production car front wheel drive time on the Nürburgring, which is a twisty little track, so that makes a whole lot of sense. And so when I was thinking about like, damn, like how sketchy this car feels at this speed, like So I wanted to think like, how fast did they go on the Nürburgring? Because, so that's something to consider. So I went back. I couldn't find an average speed anywhere. They're just like, this is how much they did the Nürburgring. I don't care about total time. I wanted to see what their average straight speed was. So I went through and I watched on the straightaways, and the guy got it up to like 240. He peaked at 240 kph, which is like 149 miles per hour or some shit like that. So he got it about 10 or so miles per hour more out of it than I did. But, again, you're on the Nürburgring where there's a lot of trees around, and, there's different circumstances on the road to how it's going to handle. Plus the guy's, race suit, closed course, all these things to think about. So if something were to go wrong, there's a lot more chances that, things are going to be okay in the long run. For me, alone on the turnpike, I'm just not going to push it. I've been pretty notorious for being somebody with a heavy foot. My cruise control generally gets set at 89 miles per hour, not because mainly because I think 90 miles per hour and above is just reckless driving, and 89 miles per hour feels like a lot less reckless driving. But as older as I've gotten to, and the more adapted that I've gotten to cars, I will never push a car beyond what I feel safe pushing it to. So anybody can just stomp on their gas pedal and try to hold the steering wheel straight and go fast. But it takes somebody with a little bit more intelligence to be able to know what the limits are, what you can do with least likely chance of something going wrong. So like when my wife nags me all the time about my speeding, because again, like I said, I cruise at 89, and doing 110 mile per hour pull to get around traffic isn't something that's weird. But I will never push a car beyond what I feel safe doing. So if I'm doing that kind of speed, it's because I feel confident and safe doing it and handling the car that way. So when somebody's yelling in my ear not to do this, it's frustrating. But like I even had one time I was doing a road pool trip. We went to Orlando with friends, and they have a minivan. I love minivans. Minivans are mad comfortable. I like driving them. But, the big concern, because I volunteered to drive back, but the big concern was, don't speed in my fucking car. You're going to kill everybody in here. I was like, so I just smiled. I was like, don't worry. I'm not going to be crazy. It's not my car, for one. I was like, I'm not going to be crazy in this car. Turns out that the situation wound up being the complete opposite. Like I was actually getting nagged at for driving too slow, because I think I was driving like between 70 and 75 miles per hour. Why? Because as I started to pick up speed in that damn minivan, that son of a bitch started to feel a whole lot more squirrely. And there was even one point in time when the other person was driving, or I thought it was funny, where she's like, oh, look, a deer. And then when she looked, she turned her head and half her body, and the whole fucking car wobbled. And it's, people don't understand, especially if you've never been in that situation. And I have been in those situations where somebody yanked my steering wheel at a high speed, and I went off the fucking road. Went off the road, went across the road, and went off the other side of the road. So I understand, and I'm very well aware of how easy it is to lose control and how dramatic that can be when you lose control at those kind of speeds. So winds up being like nagged at, and like I'm driving the van too slow. I'm like, I'm not driving any faster. I'm not pushing the gas pedal any harder than this, because this motherfucker feels like it'll roll as soon as the wind gusts. So anyway, yeah. So I guess I'll talk about suspension in a separate video, because it needs to be. And maybe now I was going to do it tonight, but probably now sometime later down the week. But again, guys, so asking questions or dropping comments, sometimes you get a little bit of extra stuff out of it. And social media links are in the description down below. Again, if you got questions to ask, or you want to ask something, drop it in the comments, because if you're DMing me personally, I'm not gonna respond. I'm gonna ignore everybody in my DMs unless you got something like you want to have a personal conversation. Depending on the conversation, what are you trying to talk to me about, or if you're talking about business. If you have business inquiry, that you can get right away. Although most of your business inquiries can be taken care of if you just go browse on vhpengines.com. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and peace.